State House Spotlight. We are on your side speaking to two Maryland lawmakers about the things you want to know, from pro-Palestinian protests spreading to universities across the nation, to the National Harbor's curfew's first weekend and the very short time until the Maryland state primary election. And joining us today are Senator Ron Watson and House Delegate Matt Morgan. And gentlemen, great to see you back with us. So, Delegate Morgan, let's start with you. The protests, they are growing as students at schools all across the nation are calling for an end to the Israel-Hamas war. Now we're hearing of another encampment that just started last evening, this one at Johns Hopkins University, as was reported in the student newsletter. So will there be any pushback from local or state authorities about these student protests?
Well, it really depends on how those protests develop. We've seen some horrible situations, what's going on in some of the Ivy League schools like Columbia. We've seen some basically violent protests that are happening in Virginia Tech and VCU. So I'm disappointed that it started and it's happening and occurring at Hopkins. What we have to realize is the students have a right to free speech and they have the right to peacefully protest, but what they don't have the right to is setting up camps on public spaces and turning them into garbage pits. They don't have the right to impede college operations, and they definitely don't have the right to threaten other students based on their religious beliefs. I think that the colleges and the administration really have an opportunity to get their house in order on this. And if things are happening bad at Hopkins, I would hope the administration would crack down on that and really hold people accountable that started it, namely the faculty members. Any faculty members that are instigating this type of especially violent protests should be fired immediately.
And it is something that universities everywhere are wrestling with how to address. Senator Watson, I want to turn to another matter with you. Prince George's County put in a teen curfew at National Harbor last weekend. This is to crack down on violence and crime. And the state is actively working to curb rising youth crime in particular. Do you think this curfew was a success? And do you think we'll see curfews like this in other places as well?
Well, so far, so good. There haven't been any instances of juveniles breaking this since it went into effect, which is a good thing. The county is still working to make this into a law. I'm very much interested in making this something that could be implemented statewide by any shop owners, by anybody who owns a mall or what have you that's experiencing these types of issues with our teens, to be able to put something in place like this to curb this until something more can be done. We're still waiting for our governor to sign the juvenile reform package, but we hope that, all of these taken into consideration will help curb what we've seen out in these streets.
And why do you think the governor has still not signed that juvenile crime bill?
That's the million-dollar question. I don't think he'll veto it. It passed both houses. And it's something that we need. He expressed he wanted accountability. We all want to see accountability, as well as the proper diversion programs for our youth out here. I think he'll wind up signing that bill and we can move forward.
All right, well, Maryland's primary election coming up May 14th, just 2 weeks away now. Early voting begins this Thursday. So, Delegate Morgan, what are you watching in the critical Senate race and some of the hot House races as we near that primary?
Well, on the Republican side, we're watching Larry Hogan. I expect him to win. I think the election may be Robin Thicke. You might be surprised by the amount of votes he actually does get. But look, Governor Hogan's going to win this hands down, I believe, on the Republican side. And the other race I'm watching is really in Congressional District 6. Neil Parrott out there, Republican candidate. We served with him in the House. He's a dynamic guy. He speaks extremely well. And he only lost to David Trone by 25,000 votes last election, which is very tight for a congressional race of that magnitude. And I'm thinking that this is second time around, he's going to do a good bit better.
All right. Well, lots to talk about and think about. We'll talk with you again next week. Maryland Delegate Matt Morgan and Senator Ron Watson. Great to see you again. Thank you for joining us on our State House Spotlight.
Thank you.
And have a great day.